The moment is still sharp in my memory, even now, even after everything that followed. I was standing in the driveway of the house my daughter and her husband lived in, the house where my name sat quietly on the lease as a cosigner, where my checking account had been draining steadily for 3 years like a slow leak nobody bothered to fix. I had driven 40 minutes from my apartment in Knoxville because my daughter had texted me saying she needed to talk. Not called. Texted. 3 words. "Come over, Mom." I knocked on the door the way you knock when you already feel unwelcome. Lightly. Like an apology. My son-in-law opened it. He didn't open it all the way. He opened it the way you open a door when you're deciding whether the person on the other side deserves to come in. He looked at me for a moment. This man I had known for 7 years. This man whose car insurance I had been paying since the transmission blew out in 2022. And he said, without blinking, without any warmth at all, "She's not here. And honestly, Patricia, we've been talking. We think you need to stop making everything about the money." He closed the door. I stood there in that driveway for a long moment. The Tennessee heat was sitting on my shoulders like something physical. I could hear a lawnmower somewhere 2 streets over. I could hear my own breathing. I was 64 years old, a retired school counselor, standing in the driveway of a house I was helping pay for, and I had just been told I made everything about the money. I drove home. I did not cry until I got to the parking garage of my building, and even then I only let it last about 90 seconds, because I had learned a long time ago that some feelings, if you give them too much room, will move in permanently. But I did not flip the switch that day. Not yet. Let me tell you how we got there. My daughter's name is Renee. She is 36 years old. She has her father's eyes and her grandmother's stubbornness, and for the last several years, a lifestyle that had absolutely no relationship to her actual income. Her husband's name is Derek. He manages a sporting goods store. They have 2 children, my grandchildren, Caden and Lily, who are 8 and 5. I love those children with the kind of love that doesn't require anything back. I want to say that clearly, because everything else I'm about to tell you might make it hard to believe. My husband, Robert, died of a heart attack in 2019. He was 61. We had been married 38 years. He was a good man, steady, quiet, the kind of man who fixed things around the house before you even noticed they were broken. After he died, I went back to work full-time for 2 more years, then retired at 63 with a pension from the school district and a modest amount in savings that Robert and I had built carefully, slowly, over decades of not spending more than we had. Renee and Derek had been struggling for a while before Robert died, but after he passed, the requests started coming with more frequency. Could I help with the security deposit on a new apartment? Could I cover the car payment while Derek looked for a better job? Could I put my name on the lease because their credit had taken a hit? Each one arrived separately, spaced out just enough that I never had to look at them all at once. Each one felt manageable. Each one felt like love. I said yes. I kept saying yes. The first time I helped cover their rent, Renee cried and said she didn't know what she would do without me. She said it in a way that felt like gratitude, like genuine relief, and I held on to that feeling for a long time after. Derek shook my hand. He called me a lifesaver. Caden drew me a picture of a house with a rainbow over it, and I kept it on my refrigerator for 2 years. By the time I was standing in that driveway hearing Derek tell me I made everything about money, I had made 89 separate financial transfers to my daughter and her husband. I know the exact number because I kept records, not because I was planning anything. Not at first. I kept records the way my generation keeps records, in a green ledger notebook I bought at a pharmacy, because Robert always said you write down what matters. 89 transfers over 3 years, rent contributions, car payments, insurance premiums, a medical bill when Derek had a kidney stone and their deductible was too high, school supplies for Caden, A birthday party for Lily that somehow required a catered cake and a bouncy castle. Utilities during a month when, according to Renee, they had a bad few weeks. Groceries more times than I can count. Transferred directly into her Venmo account with the little heart emoji she had set as her profile picture. The total, when I finally added it up, was $61,420. I had not bought myself new furniture in 6 years. I drove a 2014 Honda Civic. I kept my thermostat at 68 in winter and 74 in summer. I clipped coupons not because I was desperate, my pension covered my needs and then some, but because I thought I was helping build something. I thought I was a bridge between where they were and where they were going. I thought, eventually, they would get there. And I would see it happen, and it would feel like something I'd been part of. That's the thing nobody tells you about enabling. It doesn't feel like enabling when you're inside it. It feels like being needed. It feels like being the kind of mother who shows up. The weekend after Derek closed the door in my face, Renee texted me again. She didn't mention what had happened. She texted as if the conversation in the driveway had simply not occurred, the way you might skip over an embarrassing autocorrect. She asked if I could transfer something for the electric bill. She added a tired face emoji. I didn't respond right away. That night, I opened my laptop and I pulled up my bank's transaction history. I exported it to a spreadsheet. I sat at my kitchen table under the overhead light, and I scrolled through 3 years of my financial life, and I watched the pattern emerge the way you watch a picture develop slowly at first, then all at once, suddenly, undeniable. The transfers to Renee's account, regular as a heartbeat. The gaps between them getting shorter. The amounts getting larger. No corresponding change in their circumstances that I could see. Derek still at the same store. Renee still doing part-time bookkeeping from home, which she had told me she was growing into a business, though as far as I could tell, the business had roughly 2 clients, and one of them was her sister-in-law. I closed my laptop. Then I opened it again, because there was one more thing I needed to see. Renee had a public Instagram account. She'd made it public a couple of years ago for the bookkeeping business. She wanted to build a brand. She said, connect with small business owners, grow her presence. I had followed her and then unfollowed her because I don't use Instagram much, and I kept forgetting the password. But I could still see the posts without an account. I typed in her handle. The most recent post was from 10 days ago. It was a picture of Renee and Derek at what looked like a rooftop bar. There were cocktails on the table. The skyline behind them was Nashville. The caption said, "Finally, needed this. 42 likes." Several comments that said things like "you guys deserve it" and "so cute together." I scrolled back. 3 weeks before that, a photo of new living room furniture. A large sectional gray, the kind that costs more than my first car. Caption, "Home refresh, obsessed." Before that, Lily's birthday party photos. The bouncy castle I had paid for. The catered cake. Derek holding a beer in a yard decorated with pink balloons, grinning at the camera like a man without a single financial concern in the world. I sat with that for a long time. I'm not a dramatic person. I've spent my career as a school counselor, which means I have a fairly well-developed tolerance for sitting with uncomfortable information without immediately reacting to it. I did not throw my laptop across the room. I did not call Renee. I did not text Derek something I would regret. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, and I sat at the kitchen table, and I thought about Robert, which is something I do when I need to think clearly, because Robert always thought clearly. I thought about what he would say if he could see the green ledger notebook. I thought about what he had worked for. What we had worked for together. All those years of measuring and saving and choosing carefully. I thought about what I was building with those 89 transfers, and I finally let myself see the answer. I wasn't building anything. I was being dismantled. I called my older brother Marcus the next morning. Marcus is 68, retired from the fire department, and he has the particular gift of telling you hard things without making you feel stupid for not seeing them sooner. I told him everything: the driveway, Derek's face, the Instagram, the sectional sofa, the $61,000. He was quiet for a moment when I finished. Then he said, "Patricia, when is the last time Renee called you just to ask how you were doing?" I thought about it. I actually had to think about it. I could not come up with an answer. He said, "That's your answer." I didn't make any decisions that day. I'm not impulsive, never have been. I spent another week watching my phone, noticing when Renee texted 3 times, all requests, all with some version of things are tight right now. And when she called once to ask if I could also pick up a prescription for Lily, which I did because it was for Lily, not for her. I paid attention to what I was feeling, which is something I taught students to do for 30 years and had largely stopped doing for myself. What I felt was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from carrying weight you were never supposed to be carrying, for longer than any person should. On a Wednesday evening in March, I sat down at my kitchen table with the green ledger notebook, my laptop, and a glass of sweet tea, and I began. I removed my name from the lease. I had spoken to the property management company already, explained my situation, and they had a process. It took 2 weeks to finalize, but I started it that night. I removed myself as co-signer. I was no longer legally attached to that house. I went through every recurring payment I had set up or authorized. The car insurance, Derek's car, the one I'd been paying 18 months. Cancelled. The streaming subscriptions I was splitting with Renee, she had added herself to my accounts 2 years ago, and I had never removed her. Removed. The small monthly transfer I had set up after Renee said she was trying to save $100 a month into an account with my name on it. I closed my access and transferred the balance to my own savings. I updated my emergency contacts at my doctor's office. I updated my will, which I should have updated when Robert died and had not. I called my financial advisor and had a conversation I should have had a year ago. I did not send Renee a letter. I did not write a long message explaining myself. I did not wait for her to ask why and then deliver a speech. I had spent enough years in counseling rooms watching people use explanation as performance, saying the right words to feel virtuous rather than to create actual change. I did not want a conversation. I wanted an outcome. The next time Renee texted asking for a transfer, I read it once, set my phone face down on the counter, and went to water my plants. The silence that followed was interesting. The first week, she texted twice more. The second week, she called. I let it go to voicemail. She said she was confused, that something seemed wrong, that the insurance had lapsed on Derek's car. Had I forgotten to pay it? The tone was not worried. The tone was the kind of tone you use with someone you assume will fix it. I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I deleted it. By the third week, the tone had changed. She called again. This time her voice was different, thinner, less certain, with something underneath it I hadn't heard in a long time. She said they were behind on rent. She said they weren't sure what had happened. She said, could I please call her back? I called her back on a Sunday afternoon. I kept the conversation short. I told her I loved her. I told her I was well. I told her I had made some changes to my finances and I would not be sending money anymore. She started to say something about how I didn't understand how hard things were right now. And I said, gently but clearly, I think you and Derek are capable of more than you've been doing. I think you've known that for a while. She hung up. That was 6 months ago. What happened after is not a clean story, because real life rarely gives you clean stories. Derek lost the manager position at the sporting goods store in May. Not because of the money, I don't think, but the timing was what it was. They had to move out of the rental and into a smaller apartment across town. Renee picked up more bookkeeping clients because she had no choice. Last I heard, she had 6 now, which is 6 times as many as she had when I was making it comfortable for her to stay at 2. The new furniture was returned, as far as I know. Marcus heard from a mutual cousin that Derek had sold some things. I don't know the full details, and I'm not sure I need to. What I do know is that in September, Renee called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Not to ask for anything. She called to tell me that Caden had made the honor roll, and she wanted me to know. She sounded different, not softer exactly, but more present, like someone who had stopped being braced for a fall and had found their footing. I told her I was proud of him. She said, "Mom, I think I owe you an apology." I said, "I know." She said, "I don't know when I started thinking it was your job to take care of us. I don't know how that happened." I said, "I think I made it easy." There was a pause on the line, the kind that means something is being processed rather than filled. Then she said, "Can I bring the kids on Saturday?" They came Saturday. Caden showed me his report card. Lily climbed into my lap and fell asleep in about 12 minutes, which is something she has done since she was a baby, and which I hope she never stops doing. Derek sat at my kitchen table and drank the coffee I made, and he didn't say much. But before he left, he stopped at the door and looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, Patricia. I mean that." I looked at him for a moment. This man I had known for 7 years, who had once opened a door barely wide enough to dismiss me. I said, "I know you do. I am not going to tell you it's all fixed. That would be a clean story. What I will tell you is that something shifted in Renee, in Derek, and honestly in me. I stopped waiting to be treated like family and started behaving like the head of one. I stopped making it easy to take me for granted, and, in doing that, somehow became someone worth making an effort for. My green ledger notebook is still on the kitchen table. I haven't made an entry in it since March. I don't imagine I'll need to. Not the way I was using it before. But I keep it there because it reminds me of something Robert used to say, in his quiet, steady way, whenever we were deciding how to spend money on a car, a vacation, a repair. He would say, "Does this investment have a future?" I used to think I was investing in my daughter's future. I know now I was borrowing against my own. The $61,000 is not coming back. I have made my peace with that. What I have now is something I couldn't have put a price on when I was writing in that notebook under the overhead light, scrolling through 3 years of giving away pieces of myself. I have a daughter who calls me on Tuesdays for no reason. I have a granddaughter who falls asleep in my lap. I have a son-in-law who looks me in the eye. And I have every payment I would have made since March still sitting in my account, untouched, earning interest, quietly becoming the trip to Savannah I am taking with my friend Doris in the spring. 2 old women, a rental car, and nobody anywhere who needs something from us. Robert would have loved that. If you are sitting somewhere right now with your own green ledger notebook, your own list of names, your own transfers that have become so routine you don't even feel them leaving anymore, I want you to hear this, not as a lecture, not as a plan, just as a thing I know to be true, from standing in a driveway in the Tennessee heat, learning it the hard way. Love is not a payment plan, and the people who love you back will not require you to prove it with your bank account. You are worth more than what you've been giving away.